Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Sideline Shenanigans podcast. Today with Jacob Magadan,
Dalton Phillips.
and we're gonna be recapping a week of pretty fun football games. Had a lot of big matchups. Of course, Dalton is as happy as he could be right now. His
Oh,
balls pulled through. He needed that big time. It's a win for the team. Diving right into it here. Army and Navy, 23 and 24 in the country, both undefeated. And this is just something we have to talk about. I kind of delayed it and was looking for those big games to talk about. And of course, we'll definitely have Navy and Notre Dame playing this week in the upcoming Pick'em video. But these two teams are really good. They're actually phenomenal football teams. It's not just, and they've not played elite talent this year, but they're very consistently scoring 30 plus points in the game, and their defenses are both great. They just both come off big wins this week where they both scored over 40 points. And we're seeing things out of Army and Navy both that we've never seen with quarterbacks that are passing. I mean, they have plays where they're actually spreading it out and throwing the ball, and that's rare. Now, they don't do it often, but they do have that in the bag for both of these squads. Looking at Army, their quarterback, of course, Bryson Daly, he's a stud. You could argue him as a Heisman contender in talks of Heisman right now. That's how good he's been. He is a top 10 rusher in the country. He has been probably the best Army quarterback I've ever watched with my own eyes. He makes every pass. He's consistent, and it doesn't look like a guy that can't throw the ball. Like, a lot of the time you see those Army quarterbacks and they're just run heavy, run first. He looks like could be a passing quarterback at another university, and he just plays at Army because that's incredible with his legs. And then, of course, for Navy, Alex Texa. He's the talking point for them. Their fullback is a superstar. It's probably the best fullback in college football. We don't see those guys around much more, but he kind of keeps the fullback position alive, being a superstar in both the rushing attack and he catches passes. Had a big, like 40 plus yard touchdown catch in Navy's last game. So just had to talk about both of them being undefeated right now, both being ranked. I don't know the last time we saw both service academies ranked this late in the college football season.
I can't, I'm excited for their little bowl game they play at the end of the season. That'll be a crazy game there. I would like to see them both go ranked into that too, because I mean, imagine that. I mean, what do they play the game out? Because isn't it like during the postseason that they play the game? So like,
So, I mean, how it would work is they play this game after conference championships.
yeah,
That the Army Navy game is after the conference title. They're in the same conference, as you can see, the American Athletic Conference. So far, they've looked like the two best teams in the conference. If they
yeah,
play in the conference championship game, it would be the week before the Army Navy game. So they would play conference title,
and
then
then play again.
the Army Navy. And they
But
play
do
the
you
game.
count that game though? Like, because I mean, technically, I mean, can you count it towards the playoff picture?
Oh yeah, no doubt. It's 100% still a game. They every year play one extra game than everybody else. Yeah, because they're usually not in conference title games.
Yeah,
This used to be independents. These schools used to be independents. So they weren't in conferences, but now being in the American Athletic, both have a chance to play for a conference championship, both have a chance to make the playoffs. I mean, if one of them is ranked coming into that game and the one that is ranked wins, they're going to be up there with Boise State as the potential for playoffs. And you could even argue Boise might hop themselves up in the conversation of being a top 12 team without winning the conference. That's how good Boise's looked this year. So I don't know. It's very interesting, and I would love to see this pan out. Of course, like you said, it's America's teams. It's always fun to see Army and Navy be good. And that game, when they play each other, they pull out some sick uniforms.
yep.
Both of them wear some awesome uniforms. So, of course, I'm very excited for that when they do end up playing each other. But they have to get through Notre Dame. That's both of them have Notre Dame on the schedule. If one of them can win that Notre Dame game, then we're looking at a team that will be ranked inside the top 20 and will have a chance for the playoff, which is just insane. Missouri gets the home game against Auburn, and this was just a weird football game in general. It starts out, and Auburn, they are not looking good at all on offense as they've looked all year. Their offense has been really ugly, not very consistent at all, and it's a 3-3 game at the half. The big story is Brady Cook goes to the hospital in this
Yep.
game, and they bring out Drew Pine. Drew Pine is a guy that he didn't look great in this game. Very inconsistent. Only threw for 78 total yards. You thought when he went in there, it was over. There was no way they were going to win this game just because Auburn's defense is at least pretty solid and they have a good running back in Jarquez Hunter. Then third quarter rolls around. We're halfway through the third with about 6 minutes left in the third quarter. And Brady Cook is shown on the sidelines, jogging, running, and pretty much warming up to go back in the game. And you're like, this guy went to the hospital a quarter ago. Halftime, and I guess the second quarter was enough time for him to get his checkup over there at the hospital. He comes back and he says, I have 2.5 games left in my home stadium, and I'm going to make the best out of it. I'm
Yeah.
not going to end my career like this with an injury, and the team needs me. He said, I watched that. I knew the team needed me. So I come back, lead an amazing fourth quarter comeback, and win this game for Missouri. As you can see, Cook 11 for 22, 194. That's on a bum ankle. It was bad. I mean, he was rolling out and walk. He would literally fall down trying to roll out of the pocket. I don't know what happened, but it's obviously something pretty serious with his ankle. And they just gave him the good stuff and said, "Hey, go back and go play." And he did. I mean, he led a crazy comeback. And like I said, this Auburn offense is just dysfunctional, and Peyton Thorne really didn't play a bad game here compared to what he's done this year. He's been making tons of mistakes all year. That's why they haven't won a lot of games. He throws picks pretty much every week. This week he goes with no interceptions and a decent game with 176 and a touchdown. But Auburn, I mean, again, 0-4 in the conference. It's ugly. Auburn doesn't look like a very good football team at all. And to me, Missouri doesn't look like a top 25 team. But when Brady Cook is there, they at least have chances to win because he's such a playmaker and he can win games for them with how talented he is as a player. Next game here, UCF traveling to Iowa State, another undefeated team in the Big 12 Conference, and a team that looks to remain in the top 10, seated in a perfect position to go to the playoffs. They get challenged. UCF, a team that everybody thought was going to be pretty good this year, they make a QB switch. They go to Ja'Carry Brown, and it's over for KJ. He's no longer the quarterback. They had just suffered 3 straight losses, now 4 straight. This team is just not anywhere near what we expected them to be, and it's not because of their running game. RJ Harvey is unbelievable. Ja'Carry Brown is really good. They just can't pass the ball at all. 8 completions in an entire football game, it's just not going to get it done for you, although it almost did because on the other side for Rocco Becht in Iowa State, he makes mistakes. He throws 2 picks. He kind of picks it up, though, in the second half and plays pretty good football, but those mistakes could have cost them this game. He's also their leading rusher in this game. Rocco Becht, 20 carries, 97 yards, 2 touchdowns, as well as Carson Hansen, who we've talked about all year, and then Abu Sama. He also plays well with 10 carries and 55 yards. It's honestly a pretty good rushing attack from both sides. 354 yards from UCF on the ground and 256 from Iowa State. Both really ran the ball super well, and it almost looked like the defenses just couldn't get off the field in a 38-35 game where Iowa State just finally pulled through due to talent and just being a better football team. It took a last-minute drive from Rocco Becht. He had to take him all the way down the field in a minute and about 40 seconds, and they end up winning it. And UCF tries to answer back, and Ja'Carry Brown throws a pick. That was the game. But this Iowa State team, yet again, they suffered some adversity here with almost losing to a team that would have really hurt them. You have to be undefeated in this conference. And also for the chances of making conference championship, making the playoffs, this would have been a massive loss. They pull through and really, honestly, like I said, rushing attack great, but Iowa State's passing game gets it done. Jalen Noel, we've talked about many a times, really good game, 8 catches for 153. And then Jaden Higgins, who we've also talked about on this pod, goes 6 for 58 and a touchdown. And that was it. Rocco Becht just did his job as a quarterback and got him a win, even with the mistakes that he made. Next game here, me and Dalton were, of course, in attendance, plus his little brother Julio. Fun game. I mean, really, you take away that horrible, awful third quarter, and it was just pure dominance by Virginia Tech. This is one of the best games they've played all year. Again, awful third quarter, and that was really all Boston College got going the entire
Yep.
game. Luckily, that didn't cost us in this game. It was just 1 quarter of bad play, and we got back to what we were doing in the fourth quarter. Again, looking at the stats, Thomas Castellanos, he was healthy. He was fully healthy. This is the healthiest he's looked over the last 3 weeks. He was running all over the place trying to make plays. And he also passed the ball well, 205s and 2 touchdowns. On the other side for Kyron Jerome's, 14 for 18, 164 and a touchdown. But he didn't have to do a whole lot because Bashal Tootin broke the rushing record at Virginia Tech on 18 carries. That is a 15 yards per carry average with 3 touchdowns in the rushing attack and 1 receiving. He just had one of the greatest games I've ever watched with my own eyes. He was unbelievable. There was literally nothing they could do to stop him. And this was a rushing defense that was a top 25 rush defense coming into this game. They hadn't allowed a game anywhere near like this all year, and they were only giving up 113 yards per game on the ground. They gave up 368, and 266 of that came from Tootin. Dalton, if you have anything to add about the game he just had.
Yeah. While watching that game, it was just like he's a whole nother athlete on the field. Like he just keeps boosting his draft stock up. I'm gonna be honest. He's up there getting drafted now with running backs.
Yeah.
And like because I mean he wasn't really like that. I mean you coming from a smaller school 2 years ago. Last year he started showing out a little bit. You could see like sparks of him being an absolute stud. And now look at him. I mean he is an absolute stud. And like yet again, I'm gonna say he's a top 5 running back in the country.
Newton is clearly a top 5 back.
Yeah.
He has 14 touchdowns now on the season. He has the sixth most rushing yards on the season. And again, this is a guy that only did this in 18 carries in this game. It was a ridiculous game. Had a long of 83, had also a run for 61. Again, unbelievable game. Tech's offensive line played a full game in this game. They actually played really well, been harped on a lot. They played a great football game. And we've started rotating in linemen, and that's what's been really successful. Johnny Garrett has gotten some snaps at the tackle position, and Brody Meadows, a guy that we played against in high school,
Yep.
also in the guard and playing well in the rushing attack. He's always been known to be a
Oh,
better,
he's a big old guy. He's going to get in your. He's 6'8", what, probably 300 pounds.
at
He,
least.
he's
Yeah.
a big guy, and that's a hard guy to get around as a defensive tackle. So I mean, yeah, I understand. I've been there before, and you don't want to be getting blocked by that guy.
He's a great run blocker. And with, like you said, his size, it's going to help him a ton in the rushing attack because of his ability to just run a guy over because
Yeah.
of how big he is. Looking at other stats for this game, Kyron Drones plays really well. 10 for 40 on the ground, 2 touchdowns. And one of those carries, he ran a guy over at the 5 yard line and then drug him 5 yards into the end zone. He played with some want, some need to win a football game, and they look like a much better football team than they did even 4 weeks ago. This last 3 games they've played looks like the team we expected before the season started, with the ability to compete in the ACC. Looking at the rushing attack for Boston College, this was also a team that had a pretty good rushing attack with Herbert Richard and Thomas Castellanos, a guy that's been running the ball well. He comes in here, has 20 carries for 58 yards. We really contained him well. Other things that need to be talked about is the receiving attack for Tech. We figured out who really is the playmakers on this team, and Benji Gosnell and Steven Gosnell, the brothers Gosnell.
The brothers, yeah.
They are unbelievable. Both of them are very consistent. They make almost every catch. If it's close to them, they're bringing it in. They make play after play after play. And on top of that, Gosnell's only a sophomore. This is a guy that's going to be around for 2 more years. And even though his brother's leaving, I love it. These guys are great players. And again, we just do such a good job at creating a family at Tech where players, those guys always come in together. Done it before with the Edmonds brothers, the Fuller brothers, the Vicks.
Yeah.
It's just a great combination of guys that want to keep coming to playing at the college. They do something right in that standpoint when it comes to recruiting. Looking at the defense, another thing that has to be mentioned in this game is Antoine Powell-Ryland had an unbelievable game. 7 total tackles, 4 sacks, 4 TFLs.
He's one of the best defenders in the country. He
Yeah.
is, and he's leading the country in sacks now,
Yeah.
isn't he?
He
That's
is
what I thought. Yeah,
leader in the entire country with 11 sacks. It's a guy that has done wonders to his draft stock. A guy that was at Florida and really wasn't getting that much attention. He transfers out. He comes to Tech. He's a Virginia kid, and now he's unbelievable. He led our team in sacks last year. He's now leading the nation in sacks this year, and it's a guy that is now 15th in Heisman odds as a defensive player. How often does that happen? It's very rare to get a defensive guy in there. And of course, Travis Hunter doing that on the defensive side, but he has the offense to help him up there too. This is a guy that's just doing it all on defense. Again, he's doing this now, and a record that must be brought up. He is the first player in Virginia Tech history to have 3 games at Tech with 4 or more sacks. He breaks Bruce Smith's record, who is arguably the greatest pass rusher ever. One of the
he was
greatest.
at the game the other day, wasn't he? I'm pretty. Yeah, he was there. He was there
Yeah,
watching this guy.
it's just the dude's a stud. He's unbelievable. I mean, he's getting draft love. The NFL is going to love this guy. Whatever team can get him, you're getting that speed and power combo that you just don't see very often from edge rushers. This is a team that's figured it out. They've started doing things correct on all facets of the game, and the play calling to me has what's drastically improved from week 1 to now. If we'd have been doing this stuff from week 1, this would be a one-loss team. It just sucks that we waited this long to get into that form of play calling, and we did it last year too. So I'm just hoping that this continued success will roll on into the next couple games. Next game here, Arizona State on the road at Cincinnati, and Cincinnati just really dominated this game. Although it doesn't show on the stat sheet with only a 24-14 win, they were ahead the whole game, and it really looked like they had full control of this game. They played very conservative second half and really shut down Scadaboo, even though he didn't have a bad game. It was just not an insane game, and if you can contain him, you can contain them as a football team. Big story is Levitt doesn't play, and without Levitt, they are a completely different football team. Jeff Sims plays this whole game. He's nothing like Sam Levitt. And on the other side for Cincinnati, Brendan Sorsby plays a pretty good game, although he does have the pick. It's the rushing attack that wins it for him. Corey Kiner was awesome. We talked about how he was going to be important in this game to compete on the other side with Scadaboo, who's a top 10 back in the country, and Kiner outplays him in this game. Don, if you have anything to add to this.
Yeah, Scadaboo still like had a couple runs that he looked insane. Like you just can't tackle that guy. And I mean, missing your quarterback's a big reason for losing that ball game. If you don't miss your quarterback there, I think they win that ball game. I picked Arizona State, sadly, but that's not my first of the losses. So
Yeah, I mean, I'm
I
not
guess
mad at picking that one, thinking Levitt was going to play. With Levitt, I definitely think you're right. They were definitely a 10-time better football team. A guy that was very important the week before, even facing the injury he faced. They needed Levitt to win this game. Looking at the receiving, Xavier Henderson was the guy we talked about at Cincinnati being their lead receiver. And he was a stud in this game, 8 for 67. And on the other side, Jordan Tyson was their lead receiver, and Jeff Sims continued to get him the ball. It's just Sims couldn't get it to anybody else. It was just Tyson and Scadaboo making plays, and it wasn't enough. Next game here, Nebraska on the road at Indiana. And Indiana very easily, to me, looks like a top 10 team in the country. They're not ranked there, but golly, did they kill Nebraska. This wasn't close. 56-7. They're unbelievable. I mean, Kurt Cignetti is one of the best head coaches in football right now. He knows how to win. He was not wrong when he said that. He said, look me up, I win. He does. This
wins
guy,
ball games.
this is at Indiana. Again, a school that has not had football success for a little while. And he dominated. And on the other side, for Nebraska, Dylan Raiola struggles in this game. Again, it's a freshman. It's a kid. We talked about it. He wasn't ready for this Indiana team that is a top, in my opinion, top 10 team in the country. They've looked really good. 3 interceptions for him. That's just, you can't do that against this Indiana team. And then you look at the rushing attack. They have nothing. Nebraska does not run the ball really well at all in this game. They don't have anything from their lead backs. Both of the Johnsons do nothing. Dowdle does nothing. And Heinrich Haarberg is their lead rusher in this game. And that's 32 yards. So, yeah, just really ugly, truly, from Nebraska. Just a bad football game. And on the other side for Indiana, they run the ball really well. Justice Ellison, Tyshawn Lawton, they both play well. 2 touchdowns from Ellison, 1 from Lawton. This is just dominance. I mean, Indiana, what can you say other than that this team is legit? And really, they're looking ahead to this Ohio State matchup thinking, holy crap, we might be good enough to compete with an Ohio State team that nobody said Indiana was going to compete with at the beginning of the year. That was a game that was marked off as a surefire win for Ohio
Yeah.
State when the season started. They play well on both sides of the ball and just pure domination against a team that was arguably everybody thought they were going to be ranked the week before, and they
Not
ended
no more.
yeah, not anymore. Yeah, 56-7 final. Indiana is legit. Next game here, Miami sneaks away with another win against Louisville on the road. Louisville is still a really good football team, in my opinion, even though they're sitting at 4-3, which just sucks for them. They've played good football against everybody they've lost to. And now Miami's sitting at 7-0, a top 6 team in the country. And really the favorites to win the ACC right now, them and Clemson, of course. But again, I think this was another game where the replay center helped them out. Now, this one was less egregious than the others. It was a close play where Ward kind of gets the ball stripped out of his hand, originally ruled a fumble, and then they say, no, it's an incompletion. I do think his hand was coming forward. However, to me, the ball looked like it was not in his control as his hand was coming forward. I think the ball was loose and just sitting on his hand. I don't think he was gripping it to throw the ball. So I think it should have been a fumble, and that is the game. That is the difference in this game because Louisville returns it for a touchdown and ties the game up. And that's all the momentum in their favor. And instead, it's Miami keeping the ball, going down and scoring, going up 52-38, and that was it. I mean, that was the backbreaker for Louisville. They couldn't give up points there. Looking at the stats, Cam Ward, amazing. Tyler Shuck, amazing. Great football from both sides. Cam Ward has 319 yards, 4 touchdowns. Shuck has 342 yards, 4 touchdowns. He outplays the guy that's in the top 3 in Heisman right now.
Yeah.
This was just awesome. I mean, it was just good football from both sides. Their offenses were just rolling. This looks like 2 top-tier offenses, and they both ran the ball pretty well. Miami, not really having much of a rushing attack all year, goes Damian Martinez and Mark Fletcher are both over 70 yards in this game. And on the other side for Louisville, they have an elite back in Isaac Brown. He only gets 9 carries, but he does have 56 yards and a touchdown. And a lot of that was them playing from behind in this game, so they passed the ball more. And as you can see, it worked out for Shuck, and he's playing great. Looking at the receiving, this was the game from Miami. They got guys contributing, like Sam Brown going 3 for 125 and a touchdown, a long of a 59. And then Xavier Restrepo, 7 for 101 and a touchdown with a long of 63 yards. These guys are legit, man. Their receiving core is really good. They have Jacoby George, who's good. They have Isaiah Horton, who's good. This Miami team is very deep on offense. They have targets everywhere, and they also have a big tight end who makes plays all the time, and he didn't have a catch in this game. On the other side for Louisville, Ja'Cory Brooks, he's a stud. Bama would love to have him right now.
Yeah.
For 107, 2 touchdowns, and then Chris Bell, to give him a little bit of respect too, 5 for 77 and plays a really good game. Again, this was just all offense. It was just which side was going to get the turnover that would win them the game, and Louisville got it, and they got overturned. And Miami just ended up winning this one. But I just hate it for Louisville because they could very easily be in the front of this conference, and instead they're sitting at 2-2 with no chance to make the conference championship
Yep.
now. And it's just a good Louisville team, in my opinion, again. But Miami pulls it out, and they look like the team to beat right now because they got the replay center on their side, and they're pretty talented. Next game here, Notre Dame, they look dominant since the NIU loss, and then they look really good again on Saturday. Georgia Tech just couldn't handle them as a team, and Georgia Tech was without their star player in Haynes King. Zach Pyron takes over at quarterback. This was a former four-star recruit and a guy that has won some games for them in the past, but he isn't Haynes King. He goes 269 and a touchdown, but also has the two interceptions. I mean, you can't have that against Notre Dame. They're just a really good football team in general. They're going to run the ball, control the clock, so you give them more possessions and you're pretty much putting yourself out of it. Statistically, for Notre Dame, Riley Leonard plays well, 20 for 29, 203, and a pick. Again, his pick didn't really matter because they were dominating this game, and the rushing attack was great for Notre Dame. Jadarian Price runs the ball really well, 8 for 69. And then Riley Leonard and Jeremiah Love, these two guys have carried this football team on their back all year, and they both played pretty good here. Although Love only had 2.6 yards per carry, he was doing some things in the receiving game, and that's really what he was successful in with 3 catches for 57 yards. Georgia Tech just didn't look like they could compete with this team without Haynes King, and I think with King, this would have been a fun game. But Pyron just isn't the guy. He's not going to win him a game against a top tier ranked team. And again, although he didn't play horrible, he got no help from anybody else. Chad Alexander, Jamal Haynes, both, I mean, that's their rushing attack for the whole entire football game is 64 total yards, averaging 2.2 yards per carry. Uh,
Especially that Georgia Tech team. That team usually rushes the ball pretty good, and they need to. That's how they win ball games. They control the clock and win and run, and they just aren't doing that very well right now without Haynes King.
Yeah, no, they just couldn't handle Notre Dame at all. And Pyron himself is actually a pretty good rusher. They were just selling out for Jamal Haynes. They shut him down every time he got the ball. And Notre Dame's defense looks really good. They locked back in after that NIU loss, and they've looked like a pretty good football team since. Looking at the receiving, at least Pyron knew what guys to get the ball to, and Eric Singleton Jr. being their kind of their stud guy, 6 for 59. He got him the ball. It just wasn't enough. I mean, they didn't have the talent to hang in this game, really. And Notre Dame, 6-1 right now, and they play two tough games against Army and Navy later in the year, but they're looking like a playoff team right now. And no conference championship game, as long as they're seeded inside that top 12, they're going to make it. Next game here, Michigan on the road at Illinois. And as me and Dalton expected, Illinois is just better. Michigan is not a top 25 football team, and they actually had a passing attack in this game. This is probably the first game all year they've thrown for over 200 yards, and Tuttle looks like he's going to be the guy the rest of the year. He at least gives them a chance to compete in the passing game. But then they really couldn't get the rushing game going in this one. Although Khalil Mullings didn't have a bad day, they didn't run like they have been running. Illinois on the other side, Altmaier, he didn't have to do a whole lot. 9 for 18 for 80 yards and a touchdown. His rushing attack was pretty solid. And like we talked about, they have a multiple backfield that gets a lot of carries, and it's split up good here. Guys all doing well on the carries that they received, and even Altmaier getting in on the rushing attack with 10 carries for 48 yards. Look at the receiving game. Again, he only had 80 passing yards, so his lead receivers are only going to have few yards. Pat Bryant with 4 for 32. And on the other side for Michigan, looky there, Jack Tuttle. You have your best passing game all year? Who was it to? Colston Loveland, who I've called out all
You've been
year.
saying that all year that you need to get him the ball.
Just go to Colston Loveland more. He's a stud. This dude is a top 5 tight end in the country. Better than that, honestly. He's a top 2 or 3 guy. And they just don't use him enough. Tuttle finally figured that out with 7 receptions for 83 yards. Again, I said it last week. I'd like him to get 10 plus catches in a game. He's a beast, man. Just let him make plays. But at least Tuttle used him, and Michigan, to me, looks far better than they have with Tuttle at quarterback. Defensively, we know Michigan is usually pretty solid on the defensive side. They, in this game, didn't get much pressure on Altmaier. He was able to just sit back there and make plays. And again, he ran the ball well in this game. They only have 1 sack. They do end up having 8 TFLs. On the other side for Michigan, they have 5 sacks, 7 TFLs. They're all over the rushing attack from them, and they're all over Tuttle in this game. He doesn't have time to make plays, and the Illinois defense wins this one for them because, again, they only scored 21 points, but this is Big Ten football. Running the ball, scoring 21 points and winning 21-7. It's what you expect when you see a Big Ten football game. And Illinois, to me, they definitely look like a pretty solid team that could compete in the
And
conference.
you know who isn't? Michigan. They suck.
Yeah, not very good. Next game here, LSU at Arkansas. And Arkansas, a team that looked good 2 weeks ago against Tennessee, struggled in this game. I mean, this is a completely different football team in this game. LSU is really good, and I definitely think they're a top 10 team. And you could argue that they're probably up there with Georgia as in the best team in the SEC right now. They play amazing football in this game. It didn't look hard at all for them to beat this Arkansas team, and Taylon Green played and didn't look like he was hurt that much. They got contributions from Caden Durham. That's the big story. This is a freshman running back that hadn't played ever, no college football experience, and he had to come in a moment where he wasn't expecting it when their guy goes down, and he's played pretty good since taking over. This is his best game so far. 21 for 101 and 3 touchdowns. That's awesome from your freshman running back. Completely outduels the Arkansas rushing attack, where Jaquindon Jackson only has 5 carries.
That's why they lost the ball game right there because like I've said before, they had the best rushing attack in the country, or not the country, in the SEC, 100%, I think. And then like you have a game like this, you can't win ball games doing that. That's just my opinion.
Nope. I'm 100% in agreement with you. Even when you go down, you don't have to just go away from your offense. When your team isn't pass first and you try to go and be pass first, this is what happens. You
Yep.
lose 34 to 10. Just because it's out of hand doesn't mean you just go away from your star playmakers and don't let them make plays. And Jaquindon Jackson is that. He's a playmaker. In his 5 carries, he has 26 yards, averaging 5 yards per carry. Imagine you got that guy the ball 20 times in this game. Then it's just a different story. To me, Arkansas just mishandles this game. And again, LSU is one of the best teams in the country. They've showed time and time again that they can win these games. Looking at the stats, Andrew Armstrong plays good again. He's a guy that finally scores his first touchdown on the season from Taylon Green. And then Isaiah Santana, he plays well, 4 for 54. On the other side for LSU, we talked about how Kyron Lacey is just a stud. And then CJ Daniels, 7 for 86. Again, it's been a tried and true thing when it comes to the NFL. If you want a stud receiver, just pick an LSU guy. They're always good. They always end up working out. And again, Kyron Lacey looks like that guy. And honestly, in this game, CJ Daniels looked like a stud. This is just dominant football against an SEC school at their place. LSU is very good. To me, again, I think that they're one of the favorites to end up in that conference championship. And right now, they're first in the conference with A&M. It's A&M and LSU at 1 and 2 in this conference. That's crazy.
Weird.
And since we've seen A&M and LSU at the top of the conference, and not Georgia or Alabama, it's pretty wild. Next game here, super good FCS football game. I mean, this is what you want to see. They ran the ball well, and Cam Miller plays great. Gronowski plays pretty good, but again, he throws the pick, and that hurts them. He's also pretty elite as a rusher. I didn't know how good he was on his feet. He was making plays left and right. He actually got him a field goal before halftime, and that was the last points they scored. Very defensive battle. Both sides played a pretty good defense and knew how to shut down the other team's offense. Really, the game-changing thing was Cam Miller. He's safe with the ball. He doesn't turn it over. Again, this is now his 17th touchdown pass to 0 interceptions. I mean, that doesn't happen often at all. A guy to not throw a pick in a football season.
Heisman, that man.
Yeah, I don't know what the FCS award
Yeah.
is for best player in the country, but I know there's probably one. You're looking at a guy that could certainly win it, and Cam Miller. Been really good this year. And then the rushing attack, like you talked about, it was going to be important in this game. Both sides actually run the ball pretty well, but South Dakota State ran the ball better. They actually had 215 yards and only 36 carries. It's just they had no passing attack. Gronowski isn't a bad quarterback, but as you can see, when you have 17 completions and only 118 yards, it means you're throwing a lot of short routes, a lot of screens, and really just couldn't take the top off. Didn't have a big play down the field. And North Dakota State just a little bit better passing the ball. Again, a defensive duel. Rajah Nelson catches 4 passes for 48 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's who Miller went to for both of his touchdowns. Gronowski didn't have a touchdown pass, but we talked about how Griffin Wild was going to be important in this game. And he goes 5 for 32. But again, just not super deadly passing attacks on either side. More of a rush-heavy game, and Cam Miller just making the right decisions to win it for him. North Dakota State, to me, looks like the team to beat in the FCS. I
Yeah.
think if I was picking a team, obviously, to win a championship right now, it'd be them. But again, this is super close. If they played again, it could definitely go the other way. South Dakota State's still a really good football team, and you still have teams like Montana State and Montana who are both.
Hey, don't forget ETSU. Put them in there too.
Yeah,
I was looking for Joey.
don't sleep on ETSU. If you remember our special guest a couple weeks ago, Joey, he goes to ETSU, and they've actually played really good football this year.
They almost beat North Dakota State, did they? Did they not? They should have beat them. Was it North Dakota
Yeah,
State? Yeah.
38-35 final.
Yeah.
North Dakota State comes back in the fourth quarter and beats them, and it was really just on boneheaded mistakes by ETSU. They muffed a punt, and that was it. And they had opportunities. If you watched, I actually watched the interview from the coach after that game, And he was just like, you can't do this. Not against the team that is our Alabama, our Georgia. You give up 3 plays where they had chances to force turnovers and just couldn't get one. They just
Yep.
could not. They could not achieve what they needed to do to win this game. But again, North Dakota State super dominant. South Dakota State still look like a really good team, and we'll see who ends up winning the FCS championship. We'll check in on that later in the year. Next game here, game of the week. We talked about it coming into it. Texas, Georgia. Georgia is back. They look great in this game. Their defense was unbelievable. Destroyed that Texas offensive line, who has 2 guys that are definitely going to the NFL. One guy that's projected to be a top 5 pick right now. Georgia's defense is ridiculous. This is the defense we saw in the whole second half of that Bama game and the defense that we've saw since then and really truly before that. I don't know what happened in that first half against Bama. They just really didn't game plan well at all to stop Milroe and really his running ability, which is what their offense is really just based around. And I think truly Georgia come in there a little bit cocky. They hadn't lost a regular season game in 2 straight seasons, and I thought they were just thinking, "Oh, Bama, we'll beat them again." But they didn't. And this game they showed up. This was the team we expected. Texas, on the other hand, not very efficient in the first half. Pretty ugly first half. Multiple turnovers. They tried to sub in Manning. He gets sacked and fumbles. It was bad football. Really, really bad football. They come out of half, look like a far better football team. Me and you both said Carson Beck had to play a perfect game.
He didn't.
He played
And he won.
far from a perfect game,
He
dude.
makes stupid decisions with the ball too. Like one of those interceptions, I will give it to him, wasn't his fault. It was tipped off, but it could have been also because it was a little bit high. But it was probably a catchable ball. He got 2 hands on it. Probably should have been caught.
Hmm.
But he just makes stupid decisions with the ball, and I don't understand how they win this game. I'm gonna be honest, but I know you know the reason, Bob. It was because of their defense. But throwing 3 interceptions in the game, you shouldn't be able to win, especially against a Texas team that's supposed to be the best team in the country.
No, yeah, Texas did not show up for the first half at all. It was ugly football. Looking at the rushing stats for both sides, Georgia does get Trevor Etienne going. Another reason why they won this game is because Etienne has 3 touchdowns on the ground, 87 yards total. And on the other side for Texas, they didn't really get anybody else going. Quintravion Wisner has an okay game, but no rushing attack at all. And as you can see, Ewers has negative 34 rushing yards in this game because he got sacked a ton. They were in the backfield every single play of the game, like in the whole first half, especially. They're all over. Looking at defensive stats, 7 sacks from your defense.
Yeah,
There's not many teams in the country going to win a football game when they're getting sacked 7 times.
no.
It don't matter how good you are. If you can't protect your quarterback at all, you got no chance. And Georgia's defense, the scheme is what has to be talked about. They had a play in the fourth quarter when Texas is trying to go down and add on to the score and make it closer to have a chance. They shift out of a 4 down lineman coverage system with 2 backers, and then, of course, DBs on the rest of the field.
Yep.
They shift down their safeties into linebacker position and then double mug and blitz the 2 linebackers up the middle. And they do this 2 seconds before the ball snapped. They are shifting into this formation as the ball snapped and have a straight rusher at the quarterback. It was unbelievable scheming. Beautiful.
Kirby Smart's a genius. He's the greatest defensive coach in college football, and there's no question behind that either, in my opinion.
He's a genius, and he learned from a guy who was a defensive coach at Bama and Saban, who's always had good defenses, always had really good play calling and good schemes.
Yep.
That's exactly what he had in this game. This was a perfect game from Georgia on defense. Texas, I still think is really good. Georgia, I do think is a top 5 team in the country, and I agreed with them being top 5 even after they lost to Bama and a couple weeks ago. They still have looked like a top 5 team since. Now ranked at number 2. So we'll see where that goes for the rest of the year. Next game here, I know Dalton is just as happy as he's ever been. This is just the best day for Dalton Phillips ever to watch Tennessee beat Alabama. I got the message right after the game. He couldn't, he was just in disbelief. He's like, yes, yes, Tennessee, baby, we're back. We're back. After that ugly game a couple weeks ago.
It was still an ugly game. Could be much better. Nico is showing glimpses of what he could be, but he's still struggling. Like
Yeah.
he's still got the fresh. That he's just a freshman guy. He just needs to be like more focused and make throws. He left 3 touchdowns on the field, like easy touchdowns too. Like one, Squirrel White was absolutely just like he had 5 yards of separation.
Yeah.
Missed that one, and I mean he missed Brew McCoy 2 or 3 times, and that's your best target in my opinion. But Chris Brassel, I'm just saying, look for that man in the next 2 years because he is going to be an absolute stud. He is. I mean, I'm not going to lie. He might be our best target. It's just the fact that he's young. He makes mistakes, like the holding penalty he had. And like the holding, it was unnecessary. He should just let the guy go. He was already down the field. and we can just run the ball. It's like insane how good we can run the ball.
Again, to talk about the stats of this game, Milrow, oh gosh, bad football from Jalen Milrow. He is a guy to me that I never was high on. I've talked about it. You
You
know.
hate you hate on him. You hate on him.
Jalen Milrow is not a good quarterback, in my opinion.
Yeah.
He's a good running back. He's a great running back. The guy's phenomenal with his ability to run the ball, and he's obviously extremely talented when it comes to his ability to rush. But his passing ability is disgusting. He throws a deep ball here and there that's pretty good. He makes terrible decisions. He's one of the worst decision makers I've watched in college football. And we just talked about how bad Beck has been decision making. Milrow's been just as bad, if not worse, sometimes. He's played bad for 3 straight weeks now. He played horrible in the second half of that Georgia game. If they hadn't built the lead that they had, they would have lost that one. He's played terrible against teams that he is far better than talent wise. South Carolina, there's no way that he shouldn't have had a good game there. He was awful in that game. He's awful again in this one. He throws the pick at the end of the game. When they had a minute 30 left to go down and win, his first pass decision is a double covered slant over the middle that gets picked off to lose. On the other side, with Nico,
Yep.
you mentioned the overthrows. You mentioned the fact that he is a freshman. He
Yep.
is talented, as you could see by the touchdown that he threw, or the ball he threw to get them down the field to get in
It was
touchdown.
beautiful.
Great ball on the run, out of the pocket, much harder to throw than the three he
Yeah.
missed. And he makes it. But again, he leaves a lot out there. And the injury scare, that was very
Oh, yeah, it was scary. Always scary. Because
that
it was one of them injuries that like you don't know what happened because he kind of got tackled from behind and he like I don't know, it was like a back, but then you could also say it was his hip. I mean, there was a bunch of different like questions there. And I don't know, I was scared a little bit, and especially throwing an interception on Mr. Gaston Moore on his first play. That's just terrible. On his first snap pass.
yeah, it was ugly. Whatever he was doing, I don't
No, I don't know what he was doing. Like
what the play call was from
yeah,
Heupel was awful. You don't have I
no.
don't know what he thought he was doing. His first play call is a down the field deep ball. And of
I
course
guess he was thinking that Alabama wasn't ready for the man to come out and throw heat. I mean, I don't know.
it was a awful decision. First
Yeah.
of all, when he comes in the game, your decision should be, hey, let's throw a check down, try to get some yards and punt.
Or let's run the ball to Dylan Sampson. Give the Dylan Sampson the ball.
Well,
I
I
mean,
can see the argument for not doing that because again, Tennessee non-existent rushing attack in the first half.
first half, yeah.
I don't know what's going on there. I don't know why they can't run the ball for a half. They can't. It is literally physically impossible for them to get any rushing yards in the first
Yeah.
half. I think they had like 15 at halftime again.
And then he goes and rushes for 100 yards in the second half. Like, it
It's
doesn't make sense.
it's because their offense opens up a little bit more when
Yeah.
Nico starts making throws that the team has to at least respect Nico's passing ability. But again, it's just scary for Tennessee because if they get in a hole at some point, if they get in a game where they like
Yeah.
Georgia, if you play Georgia and you don't have a lead, you know how good Georgia is in the second half of
Yeah.
games. If you make that mistake and let them come in there and take a big lead, it's just going to be bad for them. I don't know. We'll see what they do the rest of the year, but this win is just massive. I mean,
Huge win.
and the thing to talk about, of course, like you said, rushing attack for them. Dylan Sampson's awesome. 26 carries, 139, 2 touchdowns, and does most of that in the second half. And Deshaun Bishop did a good job in his carries when he was getting the ball to make plays. He made plays here and there. And Nico ran the ball well. And actually, that 27-yard carry he had was one of the biggest plays of the game. It was on a possession where they could have easily been stopped. And that's all the momentum in the world towards Alabama. And he makes a play and gets a first down. On the other side for Alabama, they don't run the ball well at all in this game. 12 for 42 from Jam Miller. Justice Haynes can't go nowhere. And Milrow averages 0.8 yards per carry due to his sacks that he took in this game. Biggest play of the game for Tennessee, in my opinion, is when Will Brooks comes downhill on a QB run by Milrow. That was a very well drawn up play by DeBoer. Milrow fakes the sneak up the middle, rolls out to the outside, had a pulling guard to make a block for him.
Yep.
And he has, I mean, it's green grass. It's a touchdown for sure. He makes a insane tackle. Great play, and it's a play that, again, you look back at it and you say, wow, what a play by him. Looking at the receiving stats for both sides, Ryan Williams had like 20 targets in this game.
Targets. They overfeed the man the ball. I understand he's 17, he's a stud, but they feed him the ball way too much. I mean, it's obvious where you're going. Like the one pick that Jermod McCoy had, he knew exactly where he was going with it, where Mr. Milrow was going with the ball. I mean, he threw the ball to him the whole drive, and they just kept feeding it to him. I don't understand why you just spread the ball. You have stud receivers everywhere else, like Kendrick Law. I don't know why you.
In my opinion, what's wrong with Alabama's offense in general is Milrow wants to run every play. That's their play style, their playbook. And he's good when he gets out of the pocket and make running plays. Teams that know how to stop it have really shut them down on offense. And their only passing plan is just throw it up to Williams and just see if he makes a play. And really, a lot of the time, he was open. It's just Milrow can't make throws. Milrow misses him high, misses him wide, missed behind him, throws picks. just bad football again from Jalen Milroe. I'll say it again. It was ugly from him. Receiving wise, Jeremy Bernard also pretty good in this game, 5 for 72. Kendrick Law, like you just said, a speedster that needs to make more plays. I don't think he gets the ball enough, 4 for 37. And on the other side for Tennessee, you mentioned Brew being their stud, their best
Yep.
guy. He goes 6 for 80. Thornton has a good game coming off
Yep.
the 3 for 70. And Brazel has 2 for 27 with the touchdown. Squirrel White, no catches in this game, and
Yep.
they didn't need him. But again, you'd like to see him get some passes and get some catches. And he had you said it, you mentioned it. He had a deep ball wide open that Nico just
Yep.
couldn't. There's plays that if you can make them, this Tennessee team can be even better. Defensively, they're stout. They're very good. 3 sacks, but again, that doesn't show how good they were at getting to him because Milroe is good at evading sacks and he got out of a lot of them. But they were in the backfield all day. I
Yeah,
mean,
one was almost a safety. That's when I was like, maybe we win the spot. I seen the safety as potential. I was like, oh my gosh, and Miller just slips through. It's like he's so elusive. That's why I will say that I think that he would be an excellent running back. I mean, he just breaks that tackles. I
he
put him
breaks.
at running back.
Hey, I'm a Tech fan, and I watched Logan Thomas be a stud rusher, and look what he did in the NFL as a tight
With
end.
the tight end. I mean, maybe he's a running back. Maybe he's a slot. I don't know.
But
He's not a quarterback.
his arm is nowhere near ready to play
No.
any sort of NFL football. And he might come back to Alabama. I don't know. Truly, I don't have any idea what he's going to do right now. But I think he's killed his draft stock. He was a guy that before the year was a dark horse top 10 pick. People were saying maybe he sneaks in there, even though he's not got the best passing game, and he's killed that the last 3 weeks. I don't know. It's an interesting game from both sides, and now Tennessee, boom, they're back in the conversation for a chance at the conference title. Of course, they have a massive game down the road still, honestly bigger than this one.
Oh yeah, it's because it's at Athens.
Yeah,
That's why. Because that's a different ball game. This at Alabama, if you playing this at Bryant Denny, we're losing that ball game. I'm gonna
yeah.
be completely honest. Just being at Neyland is that big of a contributive factor to us winning. That's why, like, I'm hoping we get one of them higher seeds in the playoff bracket. I'm going in saying it, Tennessee, the playoffs. Um, I hope we get one of them higher seeds so we get a home game at first. I'm like, because we win the ball game if it's at home, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, and again, I think you're right. I think as long as they don't drop another game that they shouldn't lose, they're pretty much set to make the playoffs now. Even if you lose to Georgia, you will not drop out of the top 10 in the playoffs.
But
But
we do have a scary game at the end of the season. I'm very scared of
Vandy,
Vanderbilt at home. Vanderbilt at Vandy is not that's scary.
Vandy's not a joke right now, and
Yeah,
Vandy has a formula that can beat Tennessee.
yeah,
They don't pass the ball as much, so it's going to eliminate the pass rush that Tennessee has. It's so good. It's going to be more about running the ball. And yes, you're 100% right. It's a game to not overlook. It's definitely a scary game. And
yep,
Vandy has a big game coming this week, and that's a team that if they get hot at the right time, heck, they could compete in the conference.
yeah.
They could actually, no joke, have the greatest season in Vanderbilt football history if they can win that
All
Tennessee.
it takes is to win this. There's 2 games that they can win, and they'll make them the best team ever for Vanderbilt.
Yeah, and really, they want it. They
Yeah.
want it. This is a team that's dying for that kind of national attention and that kind of success. Thank you guys so much for joining us this week. Another fun week of reviews and recaps. And obviously, Dalton ends up being happy. I end up being happy. Both of our teams get the wins. Dalton's over a top 10 team. And again, the best Tex looked all year. I loved every second of it. Again, remove the third quarter. We'll act like that didn't happen. Great football from the rest of the game. Looking ahead, this is another big week of college football coming up. We have some really fun matchups. Join us again on Thursday. We're going to post our pick 'em there. And I'm excited to watch some more college football. Dalton, you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, I've got one thing to add, and it's great to be a Tennessee Vol. Go Vols!
Of course, Dalton hyping up his boys. I'm the same way. Love Tech, and I'm excited for this game coming up Saturday. Again, thank you guys so much for joining. Like and subscribe if you guys enjoy trying to grow the channel. And peace, everybody.
Peace.